evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Just about a decade ago, gender dysphoria was a fairly short entry in abnormal psychology textbooks. It was a condition so obscure that most people had never heard of it. That's changed. If you've got children in school, you know how common that disorder has become. In some places, a third of girls in a given class identify as a gender other than the one on their birth certificates. Most of them probably don't mean it. 5 years from now, they'll have moved on. They're going through what we used to call a phase. But for an increasingly large number of children, that phase will not end. Therapists will steer those children to doctors who will almost immediately give them powerful sex hormones, drugs whose long-term effects we cannot know. In some cases, those kids will then be referred to surgeons who will mutilate or remove their sex organs permanently. That is happening across the country tonight. We rarely talk about the details of any of it. It's all good, we're told. It's part of a vital, long overdue process of personal liberation, and if you stand in the way or ask too many questions, you are evil. Okay. But before we accept that version of the story, it is fair to ask, what are the details of the process exactly, and what are the consequences of it? This weekend, to its great credit, the news show 60 Minutes asked those questions in a surprisingly unflinching way. Anchor Leslie Stahl interviewed patients who had suffered from gender dysphoria and asked them a simple question: what happened next? Here's a woman called Grace Lindinsky-Smith explaining what she went through after she went to her doctor to treat her disorder. Watch.
She didn't really go into what my gender dysphoria might have been stemming from. We only did a few sessions. They asked me, so why do you want to go on testosterone? And I said, well, being a woman just isn't working for me anymore. And they said, okay.
So that was that. You got your prescription for testosterone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Being a woman just isn't working for me anymore. Okay. Here's some life-altering drugs. That's all it took. And then it kept going. Within just 4 months, Grace Lindinsky-Smith was in the operating room having a double mastectomy.
Just 4 months after she started testosterone, she says she was approved for a mastectomy, what's called top surgery, that she told us was traumatic.
I started to have a really disturbing sense that, like, a part of my body was missing, almost a ghost limb feeling about being like, there's something that should be there. And the feeling really surprised me, but it was really hard to deny.
And so she detransitioned by going off testosterone, and then went back to the clinic, and she says complained to the doctor that the process didn't follow the WPATH guidelines.
I can't believe that I transitioned and detransitioned, including hormones and surgery, in the course of like less than 1 year. It's completely crazy.
It's completely crazy. Yes, it is. It is completely crazy. It's also reckless and cruel and totally unethical. And yet in the newly politicized atmosphere of American medicine, it is routine. Another person who spoke to 60 Minutes, a man identified as Garrett, told Leslie Stahl that doctors rushed him into a sex change operation. After just 3 months of taking female hormones, they castrated him.
Garrett from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, went from taking hormones to getting his testicles removed, he says, in just 3 months, whereas the current guidelines call for continuous use for a year.
I had never really been suicidal before until I had my breast augmentation, and about a week afterwards, I wanted to actually kill myself. I had a plan and I was gonna do it, but I just kept thinking about my family to stop myself. It kind of felt like, how am I ever gonna feel normal again like other guys now?
3 months to castration, and then a week after the surgery, he wanted to kill himself. Now that makes sense, and yet it is the precise opposite of what activists claim, the opposite of the justification for these procedures in the first place. If you ask questions about the wisdom of gender reassignment surgery, you will be accused immediately of pushing the vulnerable towards self-harm. But in fact, there's quite a bit of evidence of the opposite. Gender reassignment surgery and chemical castration cause depression and exacerbate mental illness. This is known. Just 5 years ago, a study by the Obama administration found no positive health benefits from this so-called treatment. In a 2016 document called the Proposed Decision Memo for Gender Dysphoria and Gender Reassignment Surgery, Obama officials concluded that, quote, Based on a thorough review of the clinical evidence available at this time, there is not enough evidence to determine whether gender reassignment surgeries improve health outcomes for Medicare beneficiaries with gender dysphoria, end quote. So why wasn't there enough evidence? Well, the Obama administration found that many sex change patients were, quote, lost to follow-up. Why is that? Many of those patients apparently had killed themselves. Researchers in Sweden found the same thing. After 10 years of study, the Swedes concluded that people who underwent sex reassignment surgery were 19% more likely to commit suicide. The risk of psychiatric hospitalization was nearly 3 times greater. In other words, it was an utter disaster. Yet strikingly, most Americans are not aware of these numbers. They've never seen this research. They're not allowed to see it. Instead, they see a daily barrage of propaganda, most of it online, made possible by Google and Facebook. That propaganda has a very specific effect, as intended. Watch.
How many of you feel that you were blindly affirmed?
I didn't get enough pushback on transitioning. I went for 2 appointments, and after the second one, I had my letter to go get on cross-sex hormones.
2 visits? That's it? All 4 tell us they learned about transitioning on the internet, where there are transformation videos on YouTube, trans influencers, and forums.
We haven't said an awful lot of complimentary things about Leslie Stahl on this show, but Sunday night's piece was a remarkably brave piece of journalism. Leslie Stahl certainly didn't need to do that piece. She did it anyway. Good for her. And she's being punished for it now. Within minutes of that broadcast, the usual liars were accusing Leslie Stahl and the people she interviewed of committing an act of violence. Their crime? Telling the truth. Now, those kinds of attacks have a chilling effect on the rest of the population, and that's, of course, the point of making them. Watch this psychologist describe how many in medicine are simply too afraid to care for their patients.
Do you have conversations with your colleagues about this whole area of accepting what young people are saying too readily?
Yes, everyone is very scared to speak up because we're afraid of not being seen as being affirming or being supportive of these young people or doing something to hurt the trans community. But even some of the providers are trans themselves and share these concerns.
We're afraid to speak up because we don't want to be seen as not affirming young people in their decision to have these surgeries and to take these life-altering drugs. These young people, how young are we talking about? At what age do we have to respect their personal decision to, say, undergo chemical castration? Well, last year, Joe Biden answered that question. He suggested that children as young as 8 can change their sex.
The idea that an 8-year-old child or a 10-year-old child decides, I decided I want to be transgender. That's what I think I'd like to be. It'll make my life a lot easier. There should be 0 discrimination.
So as we said at the outset, things are moving awfully fast, and most people have no idea what the details are. So it seems worth spending some time, as 60 Minutes did over the weekend, talking to people who've actually been through this process.
All right, Shalom, Shalom. This is the brother Nahal from James Kingston, Jamaica camp, giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashmir Shai Bashmaka Kodash. The honors to our apostles and elders of James, great millstone, who teach and rule well through spirit and power of Yahweh Bashmir Shai. Peace, love, and salutations to the Akim in the 4 corners of this earth, pushing this word with all truth and sincerity. To speckled by the Akim and Akwat out there who are tuned in, listening, and learning in hopes of being saved from this wicked, confused rulership, from this wicked, confused society, from under the thumb of Esau, Edom, the devil, the son of perdition, the wicked. And I mean, hey, truly is America termed Mr. Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, right? Truly, right? You can see it all in that in that review that Tucker Carlson did, right? That hey, the whole 8 minutes of it, the whole 8 minute of it. I want to say it's astonishing, but hey, it's not really surprising again, because we're in an era, we're in an age where it is way more abominable than what Sodom and Gomorrah was. You know what I mean? But just to show you, truly is America called Mr. Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. You have men changing their sex to women, women changing their sex to men. And it's a whole lot of confusion, and that's what Babylon means. Babel, right? Babel means confusion, yo. I mean, it's a whole lot of confusion that's going on, and you can see that people, the scripture rings true when it talks about the wicked being in authority to the people mourn, right? Mainly it talks about Israel because Israel is mourning more than all these other nations upon the face of the earth. But even these heathens, they are mourning as well. Esau, Edomites, the peons, they are mourning as well, yo. You know what I mean? You can see the social media, the way the construct of this era, you know what I mean, a society as they would deem it, yo. Society is wicked, right? The way of life, the philosophy of this world is wicked. And you can see how it plays out on these people, yo. Right? Society tells them that look, if you want to be a female, if a male wants to be a female, hey, no one will judge, no one should judge. You know what I mean? And it isn't wrong, it's your human right. Same thing for the woman. If you want to be a male, hey, do the same thing, yo. And these people, a lot of them are pressured into conforming to what society pushes, to what the social media put forth, right? And just as you can see, yo, right, these four, um, okay, I'll just say these four idiots, yo, who can't think for themselves, right? They made peer pressure, society, social media get to them, and they went into it, yo. You know what I mean? Even the leaders, their leaders, you know what I mean, like the doctors, their teachers, their parents, yo, can't even set a good example for them. You know what I mean? And look what happened, yo. A lot of them commit suicide, a lot of them want to commit suicide, a lot of them regret it, you know. They regret, hey, that I can't even call him a male again, yo. You know, he removed his testicles, and a week later he wanted to kill himself. You know, and then you have Leslie Stahl, I think that's her name, Leslie Stahl. Let's see if we can
Guy.
put that back, right? Leslie Stahl, she basically did a interview on it or a report on it, yo,
For it now.
on it,
With
right? And hey, what? She's being criticized, yo. She's being hated upon because she's speaking the truth. You know what I mean? And she's speaking out against it. And Scripture tells us that about it as well. That the man that departed from evil maketh himself a prey, right? She's making herself a prey by what speaking the truth. You know what I mean? Speaking standing up for what's right and not what not
within minutes of that
right. So, hey, Mr. Babylon the Great, yo, it's all confusion through and through, and that's the reason why Yahweh Shemir Shai is gonna put a sword of destruction, especially to this earth, especially to Mr. Babylon the Great America, yo, right? Burn it, you know what I mean? Because that's all it deserves right now at this point, you know what I mean? Nothing can save it. Scripture tells us that what we would have healed Babylon, but Babylon is not healed, yo, right? Nothing will save, nothing can save the state that America is in right now. You know what I mean? That abominable state. And though it is abominable, yo, it's leaking. You know what I mean? The philosophy is the way of life. It's leaking through the four corners of this earth. All these other nations are conforming to it, yo. And it just have confusion throughout the four corners of the earth. And that's what happened. That's what happens when the evil, when wicked rule, yo, right? When wickedness rule. You know what I mean? So, Revelation 17 and 1, and there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will shew thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. And that's America, yo. The great whore that sitteth upon many waters. You know what I mean? It says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication, her way of life, her philosophy, that westernized mindset. Do as thou wilt. You have your human rights, you have free will. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you decide that you want to do. You can identify as anything you want to identify as. You know what I mean? And all the madness that's being brought up or taught up in the laws and legislation of America, it's being poured out through the four corners of the earth, yo. Such like the democracy and all of that bullshit, yo. So the kings of the earth, right, have committed fornication with America, yo, meaning what they've conformed, yo, with the ways of and the construct of the American way of life, yo, due to what, who knows, they may have received gifts, you know what I mean? They've fattened their bellies, their pockets, you know, Who knows? Yo, probably they just want to be a part of the wickedness as well. It says, and the inhabitants of the earth have made drunk with the wine of her fornication, yo. Hey, just check places out, especially like out here in Jamaica. Let me use Jamaica as an example, yo. You know what I mean? In the early days, yo, in the early centuries, you know what I mean? I can say, yo, the 1980s, yo, you know, 1970s, 80s, right? You have our people, yo, basically speaking out against the wickedness of Babylon, yo. You know what I mean? And that's before America's philosophy was throughout the four corners of the earth. Right now, it's out there, and those places like out here in Jamaica, yo, they've conformed, yo. You know what I mean? They've been drunken with that wine, yo, because you have faggots running around rampant. No one speaking out against that again. No one speaking out against the LGBT or the J flag community out here. Not even these artists, these reggae artists that claim to be conscious and claim to be revolting against the system of Babylon. You know, they're all quiet. You know, they are quiet with what's going on because what they've been drunken with the wine of America's fornication. You know, the wickedness of this world, right? So Yahweh Shemishai, he's gonna be the one to judge this place here because no one will truly stand up but the men of the Lord to judge this place here. And the men of the Lord that are standing up, who are sighing and crying, just as Lot was vexed in Sodom and Gomorrah, these men are vexed right now. These men are gonna wait upon their Savior, which is the Son of the Most High Yahushua, as he said that they should do in Zephaniah 3 and 8. You know what I mean? But no one else is standing up with a firm stance against what's going on right now, against the philosophy that's being pushed forth upon our people, the wickedness that our people are doing, you know. Right? It says, verse 3, Revelation 17 and 3, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. You know, and that woman, again, that's America. You know, the scarlet colored beast, right, is NATO, the EU, right? Because America seated upon that beast. You know, America has control. The elites use America as a corporation to control, you know what I mean, these other nations as well, right? That's America's like the hub of control, the head, you know. It says the woman. Let's not bring this over. Okay, bring this back. It says the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and that's royalty, or which America right now is the golden city, or the to go, the to be city, you know, the place to be, or the place to where dreams and aspirations can be brought forth. You know, I mean, that's America. It says decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in your hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. You know, so America, it is lustful. It's a great melting pot. All these nations go to America for a better life. So to them, it's a golden cup here, but it says what? It's full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. You have persons of different countries who have, let's say, they have some standard, some standard in their culture. Their way of life is like a somewhat upright. They believe that what a woman should only have one man, a man can have multiple wives. They don't believe in adultery. Let's say the food that they eat, they try to eat healthy. The moment that they go to America and live in America, let's say they live in America, 6 to 12 months, they're completely changed. They become abominable. Their culture they put off. I mean, their way of life they put off. They accept the abomination, the filthiness, and fornication. Why? Because when they go over there, all they see is abomination, or all they hear is about abominations, or they're within the midst of abomination itself, right? And it's either one or two things. It's either they change the abomination, or the abomination change them, and the abomination outweigh them by, let's say, 1,000,000,000 to 1, or 1,000,000,000 to 2, or 1,000,000,000 to 10, if it's 10 person in a family, you know. So they cannot change the abomination. The abomination eventually will change them through what the media, right, society, right, people, and all the influences and the pressure that they're under. So that's what Mr. Babylon is, an abomination, an abominable city. It says, and upon her head was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, right? Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, right? and the abomination of the earth. And that's what America is, yo. And truly is that name given to her, yo, of rightly, right? Rightly is that name given unto America, yo, right? Mr. Babylon the Great. So this is Micah 2 and 1. Let me jump down to verse 10. It says, Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. And as it just says, right, Mr. Babylon the Great, it says here it's full of abominations and filthiness. So it's polluted, yo, right? And it isn't only America, but the whole entire earth at this point, yo, because the philosophy, Scripture tells us that the kings of the earth are drunken with wine for fornication, and these nations are mad. The philosophy is it's being pushed throughout the four corners of this earth, yo, right? So we need to arise, yo, arise and depart, what, for spiritual and mentally, and then Yahushua, when he returns physically, he'll will depart physically, yo. Yahushua will bring down this wicked rulership. I mean, bring down this wicked ass society. Righteousness will be set on high. You know what I mean? So it says, Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. Don't try to seek life in this abominable place, yo. Right? Because it is polluted, it shall destroy you. Yeah, eventually, yo. Even if, let's say, you make a lot of money and you have a nice, comfortable life, by the time you start done, yo, with the laws and legislation that you're putting in place, who knows what will happen to you, right? It's like you're constantly on edge with this devil, because he's constantly enacting laws that are only for his benefit and your destruction, even with a sore destruction, yo. You know what I mean? Even with the sword destruction, and if it isn't the means of taking away your goods or destroying you physically, mentally, and spiritually, it will destroy you, right? You may just end up becoming what? A transgender. Who knows? Who knows, yo? Gay, homosexual, or a lesbian. You know what I mean? Gangbanger, right? In the streets, gangster, bad man. Who knows? Some way it is gonna destroy you. Some way, if you don't arise and depart mentally, say, alright, this is not my rest, yo. I'm looking for what? A better place where in dwell righteousness in regards to we look for new heavens where in dwell righteousness. That's Second Peter 3 and verse 13, right? So this is Revelation 18, right? And I'll start at verse 4. It says, And I heard a voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh had remembered her iniquities. Right? Reward her even as she reward you, and double unto her double to her works. In the cup which she had filled, fill her to her double. Right? So hey, Yahweh Shemishai is gonna destroy America. It says she how much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her, for she said in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Right? The American pride, yo. America is the greatest country on earth. You know what I mean? That's what they're saying, yo. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death, mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. And that's the thermonuclear missiles from the ICBMs, yo, right? The intercontinental ballistic missiles that will be shot at America and burn America thoroughly, yo, right? Leaving nothing, no remains. For strong is the Lord Yahweh Shemishai who judgeth her. That's who Yahweh Shemishai, yo, the creator of all things, yo, the creator, the man, or the power, let me say that, the power who set up America to be this ruling kingdom, this ruling empire. He's the one that's gonna bring it down. Yahweh Shemishai, he bring it up and he bring it down. You know, he kill, he makes alive. He's the one that's gonna judge America, right? And he's the one that's gonna shut off these intercontinental ballistic missiles to America, you know, and burn it fervently, or burn it up, you know. So the scripture says again in verse 4 that what we should um it says, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. Not to depart physically, not to take a plane and go to a different country, but mentally, or depart out of America, you know, the way of life, the philosophy that they push you know what I mean, the desires and lust of the flesh, right? And what? Where are you gonna go, yo? Under the shadow of the Almighty, Yahweh Shai. You're gonna have your mindset set upon the things that are to come, the treasures laid up in heavens, in regards to Matthew 6 and verse 9, 21 on down, 19 to 21, you know what I mean? Right, always dwelling upon the laws, commandments, and statutes of Yahweh Hashem and Shai, right? That's where your mindset should be, yo. You should be looking for new heavens, yo, where dwelleth righteousness, right? So that's what it means to come out of her mentally, not physically, right? Because hey, prophets are over there in the land of America. Men of the Lord are over there in the land of America, right? Beginning with the elders and apostles of James on down, right? Ado and Rataza, they are a part of the hopeful elect, and all the men that are doing this word with all truth and sincerity are a part of the hopeful elect, right? They will be delivered up, they will be beamed up in the chariots, yo. Yahweh Shai will rescue them from before these missiles hit ground zero and burn up America, right? So if you come out of our mentally ill, that's the salvation that's coming for you, right? As an Israelite, that is. So this is Jeremiah 51, and I'll start at verse 5. It says, "For Israel had not been forsaken, nor Judah of his power, of the Lord Yahweh of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Flee out of the midst of Babylon, and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity, sin upon sin upon sin." And that's all America is, yo. Transgression upon transgression upon transgression. You know? "For this is the time of Yahweh's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense." You know what I mean? So Yahweh Shemeshah, right? Hey, it's his time of vengeance, yo. Right? "Wait upon me until I rise up to the prey, for my determination is to gather the nations, yo." You know what I mean? "And pour upon them his wrath, indignation, that righteous anger." It says, "Behold, had been a golden cup, Babylon, Slakia, had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken, and the nations of drunken of her wine. Therefore the nations are mad. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go every one into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies." You know what I mean? And that's it, yo. So how about, hey, the judgment of Babylon, yo, right? It's not at hand, right? Yahweh Shemeshah is telling us to what part, yo, right? Come out of her, so that what we be not a part of her plagues, right? I'll just jump down to 12. It says, "Set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon, make strong." Let me just read from 10. And the Lord had brought forth our righteousness. Come and let us declare in Zion the work of the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yeshai. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. The Lord had raised up the spirit of the king of the Medes, and the king of the Medes right now at this point it is Putin, Vladimir Putin, right? The president of Russia. You know what I mean? It says, or the prime minister, whichever it is, says, "For his devices against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of the Lord, the vengeance of his temple." On I, Russia, right, is one of those one of the adversaries of America, which will take part in the destruction of America. Russia, Iran, you know what I mean? Those two mainly, you know, they will take part in the destruction of America, yo. So set up a standard upon the walls of Babylon, make the watch strong, set up the watchmen, prepare the ambush. For the Lord Yahweh Shemeshai both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon. "O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness." And hey, America is covetous. Just check out Habakkuk 2 verse 5 on down. Tells us that they can't be satisfied. Esau cannot be satisfied. And that's America now. America going to invade these other nations, talking about they're bringing for democracy just to gather their resources, yo. They're covetous, right? I just wanted to get this word Babylon, and then I'll close out with this, yo. So this is Babylon, right? So Babel, or Babal, that is Babal.
Strong's H894. Bavel. Bavel.
Right, and you have Babal. or Babylon. Confusion, right? Confusion, that's what it is, yo. In America right now, the state of America, it's just all confusion throughout and throughout and throughout. I'm just showing a real quick funny article, yo. Alright, so let me see if I can get this. Just to show you, yo. This is madness all through, yo. And it just deserves destruction, yo. So I'm man identifies as deer. Let's get this. Oh, no, well, not images. Let's not get image. Alright, let's see here. Alright, let's get the image. Oh boy. Alright, so let's get this image. It says, trans species man who self-identifies as a deer accidentally shot by hunters. Confusion. Confusion, yo. Say with that, I'm gonna close out giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Shemir, Shai, Bashim, Kodash, the one and Torah apostles and elders of famous great ones, the one who teach and rule well through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Shemir, Shai. Peace, love, and salutations to the Akim in the four corners of this earth, pushing this word with all truth and sincerity. Shalom. Mawat Lababal. I tell it.